We are now entering our study of the book of Revelation. We will start by looking at the structure of the book. The structure of the book of Revelation can be easily understood through the story of Joshua's battle against Jericho in the Old Testament. In the book of Joshua, chapter 6, we find the story of the start of Israel's conquest of the Promised Land. For 40 years, Israel had wandered in the desert because of their unbelief and sin. In chapter 6 of the book of Joshua, the Israelites begin to enter into the land God has promised to them. A very large city stands in their way, the city of Jericho. God himself gives instructions to Joshua on how to conquer this city in the following verse. Joshua chapter 6, verse 1-5. Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. Then the wall of the city will collapse and the army will go up, everyone straight in." God was going to deliver Jericho into the hands of the Jews, just as he will one day deliver the world into the hands of Jesus. God gives clear instructions about what the Israelites were to do. March around the city 1 time every day for 6 days, and on the 7th day, march around it 7 times. In these instructions, there is a pattern to understand. There is a set of 7 within the set of 7. The second set of 7 is located within the last day, the 7th day. It seems that the book of Revelation is structured according to this pattern. 7 is the number of completion in the Bible. When God created the world, he created for 6 days, and on the 7th he rested. His work was completed in 7 days. The book of Revelation is packed full of groups of 7. Not only is this the closing book of the Bible, but it also describes in great detail how God is going to complete his work in this present earth and heaven. In the book of Revelation, God describes to us the end of this heaven and earth and the beginning of eternal rest in the new heaven and the new earth. Appropriately, the Bible uses groups of 7 to show that this is how the world will end and the work of redemption complete. The 4 basic groups of 7 that gives us the main structure of the book of Revelation are the 7 letters to the churches, the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 bowls of God's wrath. Once we understand this structure, we can understand that these 4 groups of 7s offer us a chronology of the events of the book of Revelation. After the book of Revelation describes the church age with the 7 letters to the church, it starts into a series of 3 groups of 7 that are all connected with each other. The 7th seal is the 7 trumpets, and the 7th trumpet is the 7 bowls of God's wrath. 7 within 7 within 7. Allow me to explain this pattern over and over in various ways. Let us first look at the 4 main sections of the book of Revelation that describe 4 major time periods of the end. Revelation chapter 1 to chapter 7 basically forms a group of 7 chapters that describes the church age. The major description of the church age is found in chapter 2 and 3. Where a series of letters are written to the complete church of God by using 7 types. These letters to the churches all finish with the sentence, "Whoever has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches." This sentence makes it clear that these letters are for all Christians who read the Bible. They apply to everyone, everywhere, at any time during the church age. In chapter 6, the church experiences the rise of the Antichrist and the final stage of the birth pains before they are raptured into heaven. In chapter 7, 144,000 Jews are given a seal of protection against the calamities that will take place on earth in the first half of the tribulation. There is a preparation for the beginning of the tribulation, and at this time the church is seen in heaven. Revelation chapter 8 to 14 form a group of 7 chapters that describe the events of the first half of the tribulation. In chapter 8 and 9, the major catastrophes of the first 3 years and a half are described by the blowing of the 6 trumpets. The 6 trumpets are found when the 7th seal is opened. Chapter 11 tells us about the 2 witnesses that will stand up against the kingdom of the Antichrist. Chapter 13 gives us details about the rise of the Antichrist and his eventual proclamation of being God when the first half of the tribulation is over. Chapter 14 describes to us the taking up of the 144,000 into heaven before the Great Tribulation starts, and the proclamation of the gospel by the angels before God pours out his wrath on earth for 3.5 more years. Chapter 15 to chapter 20 describe to us the time of the Great Tribulation. During the time of the Great Tribulation, God's final wrath is poured out on the Antichrist and mankind for their sins. The 7 angels holding the 7 final bowls of God's wrath are presented to us in chapter 15, and the bowls are poured out in chapter 16. Chapter 17 and 18 tell us about the fall of both the financial and the governmental system of this world, and the fall of the false religious systems of the world, as they are being punished in the last Great Tribulation. Chapter 19 describes the battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Christ. Chapter 20 of the book of Revelations describes the 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth. Finally, the book of Revelations tells us about the end of this age and the start of eternity from chapter 20, verse 11, until the end of chapter 22. The destruction of the present earth is pictured here. Mankind is judged, and the start of eternity in the new heaven and the new earth begins. Although the chronology of the book is fairly evident once you understand the structure of the book, it is still somewhat confusing because it jumps up and down between events in heaven and events on earth. The book makes it clear that what happens on earth is connected with the events that are taking place in heaven. This is not the first time that the Bible shows us the spiritual events behind the physical events that are happening on earth. Not only does the book jump up and down between events on earth and in heaven, but it also has certain chapters that go back and explain more details about a time period. The structure of the book helps us understand that the book is largely chronological in the way it is written. Let us now make a quick run through all the chapters of the book in order to get a bird's eye view of what we will be studying in greater detail in the next few weeks. Chapter 1 is an introduction to the book. It tells us about the author and how he came about receiving the information that is found in this book. Chapter 1 starts with the following statement, Revelation chapter 1, verse 2 to 3. The revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place, he made it known by sending his angel to his servant John, who testifies to everything he saw. That is, the word of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. Blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near. John is clear that what is written are the testimony of Jesus himself concerning what is going to take place. John also says that what is written is prophecy and pronounces a blessing on those who read it and take it to heart. It is so important for us to take this book very seriously and not half-heartedly. This book is clearly called a book of prophecy, and we are commanded to take it to heart. It is common in our days for pastors to skip over the book of Revelation, and by doing so, the blessing pronounced in this book cannot be applied to their congregations. I have also heard many pastors explain away the book of Revelation as just being a dramatic play that teaches us about the fight between good and evil. Listen to what the modern church and the modern pastor has to say about the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is intended to warn Christians who are getting too cozy with the Roman Empire. Adopting the artistic form of a Greco-Roman play, complete with drama, tragedy, comedy, and chorus, John communicates a startling message to those in his prophetic theater. With astounding theatric, John in essence is saying, don't get comfortable with the empire. Remember, it's a beast. It's Jesus who is the Savior of the world, not Caesar. The last best hope for the world is not Rome, but the kingdom of Christ. This is taken from a book, Anthem of the Lambs. This is also taken from the same book. Revelation can also be seen as a prophetic interpretation of the cataclysmic events of the previous generation. Nero's vicious persecution, the plague that ravished Rome, the economic crisis generated by crop failure in Egypt, and most significantly Rome's destruction of Jerusalem and the Jewish temple. Here is another way the author describes the book of Revelation. Revelation is an extremely elaborate political cartoon. As we study the book of Revelation, we will be studying it not as a political cartoon, but as prophecy. Everything that is written in this book is to be taken with the utmost seriousness. Chapter 2 and 3 of the book are most likely the most important chapters for the church to study in the whole book. In these 2 chapters, we find 7 letters written to 7 churches who represent all churches on earth at any given time in history. These letters give us an amazing overview of what we can expect the church to look like. It gives us God's perspective on the church. Because these letters are written directly to the churches from the Spirit of God, they give us a unique understanding about the church that no other place in the Bible gives us. We will pay very close attention to these chapters in the coming few weeks, as they give us extremely valuable information about the state of the church. Chapter 4 and 5 give us a glimpse into heaven and explain the events in heaven that bring about the birth pains on earth and the start of the 7-year tribulation. In these chapters, John describes the throne room of God, and it is with the following scene that he jumps into the prophecies of the future punishment to come. Revelation chapter 5 verse 1-5 says, Then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides, and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, Who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll? But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside it. I wept and I wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. Then one of the elders said to me, Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. We are told that God is holding a scroll in his right hand that no one in heaven can open. This scroll is sealed with 7 seals, and only Jesus can open it. Everything that happens in this book from this point on is the unfolding of the final will of God for the people of the earth. The events that are recorded in the scroll do not take place until all 7 seals are opened. In chapter 6, Jesus starts to open the seal, and there is great unrest that breaks out on earth. The Antichrist is released to start his conquest of the world, and because of the terrifying events that take place, all mankind hide in caves, knowing that the great day of God's wrath is about to come. As we have stated in the past, the opening of the seals represent the final stage of the birth pains described by Jesus in Matthew 24. When this event comes about, it is going to be hard to miss. Listen to the gravity of what is going to happen as described in the following verse. Revelation chapter 6, verse 7 to 8. When the Lamb opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the four living creatures say, "Come." I looked, and there before me was a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades was following close behind them. They were given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, famine, and plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. As a consequence of the opening of the first four seals, over a fourth of the earth's population was killed by sword, famine, plagues, and wild beasts. It is going to be very hard to miss the fact that the end is approaching once such a large population of the earth dies. It is also important to understand that the events of this chapter do not describe the actual tribulation period, but only the events that announce the coming of God's wrath as understood by all the people of the earth at that time. Chapter 7 speaks about the preparation in heaven for the first half of the tribulation. 144,000 Jews are given a seal of protection before the earth is punished, and the church is now in the throne room of God. Listen to the instructions that are given to the angel that was given the power to harm the earth during the tribulation period. Revelation chapter 7, verse 2 to 4. Then I saw another angel coming up from the east, having the seal of the living God. He called out in a loud voice to the four angels who had been given power to harm the land and the sea. Do not harm the land or the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. Do not harm the land and the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the forehead of the servants of God. It is not the church that is given a seal of protection before the tribulation starts. It is only 144,000 Jewish people. The church is no longer on earth, as we find out in the following verse, Revelation chapter 7, verse 9 to 10. After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. And they cried out in a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb." In chapter 8, the final seal is opened, and there is silence in heaven for half an hour. Terrifying events start to happen on earth at the blowing of the first four trumpets, such as 1/3 of the forest being burnt up and 1/3 of drinkable water turning bitter. In chapter 9, trumpets number 5 and 6 are sounded, and demonic armies are released on earth to help the Antichrist take full control of the world. Satan is allowed to use demonic forces to force the world into submission. The description of the demonic beings are frightening, and the events recorded here for us should not be taken lightly. The demonic forces are given power to hurt the people of the earth, except for those who have the seal of protection on them. Listen to how John describes the first half of the tribulation in Revelation chapter 9, verse 4 to 6. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree, but only those who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months, and the agony they suffered was like that of the sting of a scorpion when it strikes. During those days, people will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them. The earth will be under the power of Satan and his angels. This short time of suffering on earth will be a glimpse of what hell will be like for eternity in the future. During those days, people will seek death but not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them. Please do not allow false teachers to trick you into thinking that this event will never take place. Chapter 10 brings us once more to heaven and explains a spiritual event. This is a short break in our story where John is once more approached by an angel and is told that there are more prophecies to come. Chapter 11 describes the work of the two witnesses in Jerusalem who confront the world and the Antichrist. It is fairly safe to assume that these two witnesses will witness on earth during the first half of the tribulation and will be taken up into heaven before the Great Tribulation starts. These two witnesses will be hated by the entire world. They will die and they will be resurrected in front of the whole world, as described to us in the following verse. Revelation chapter 11, verse 7 to 12. Now, when they have finished their testimony, the beast that comes up from the abyss will attack them and overpower and kill them. Their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. For 3.5 days, some from every people, tribe, language, and nations will gaze on their bodies and refuse them burial. The inhabitants of the earth will gloat over them and will celebrate by sending each other gifts, because these two prophets had tormented those who live on the earth. But after the 3.5 days, the breath of life from God entered them, and they stood on their feet, and terror struck those who saw them. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, "Come up here." And they went up to heaven in a cloud, while their enemies looked on. Chapter 12 is a break in the story. Once more, we are given a brief historic overview of the spiritual battle that had been raging on between Satan and the people of God. The people of God are described as a woman, and Satan as a great dragon. This chapter may be one of the hardest to understand in this book. Chapter 13 is one of the most detailed descriptions of the events that will take place during the rise of the Antichrist through the first half of the tribulation. It is in this chapter that we are told of two major events of the 7-year tribulation period. We are told about the false resurrection of the beast that will amaze the whole world and cause all countries to fear him. And we are also told about the abomination that causes desolation that will happen right before the Great Tribulation starts. It is in this chapter that we read about the future bondage the Antichrist will bring on the earth. Revelation chapter 13, verse 15 to 17. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Chapter 14 is much like chapter 8. It describes the events that take place in preparation for the second half of the tribulation, the Great Tribulation. In chapter 8, the church had been raptured, and the 144,000 left on earth to be witnesses for Christ. In chapter 14, the 144,000 witnesses find themselves in heaven, along with the two witnesses, and it is now angels that witness to the world directly, and they proclaim the gospel to them. Remember that at this time the world has experienced the attacks of demonic forces of Satan. It is no longer strange for the people of the world to experience angelic beings. The angels proclaim the gospel to the world and warn everyone that they must not take the mark of the beast. Revelation chapter 14, verse 6 to 7. Then I saw another angel flying in midair, and he had the eternal gospel to proclaim to those who live on earth, to every nation, tribe, language, and people. He said in a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him who made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and the springs of water." Once the angels finished their proclamation and warning to the world, The 7 final bowls of God's wrath are poured out on the earth. The Great Tribulation begins. Chapter 15 shows us more detail about the spiritual preparation for the Great Tribulation, and chapter 16 describes the terrible events that happen on earth during the last part of the tribulation. At the pouring out of the 7 bowls of God's wrath, people are plagued with sores. The sea and all drinking water on earth turn to blood, and the sun scorches the people on earth. All 7 of these plagues happen during the final 3.5 years of the tribulation. Chapter 17 speaks about the fall of the false religious systems of the world, and chapter 18 speaks about the fall of the financial systems of the world. In chapter 19, the Battle of Armageddon is described to us. The Antichrist gathers the armies of the world against Jerusalem, and Jesus himself descends to earth with his armies from heaven. Here are a few words from one of the most glorious chapters in the Bible, Revelation 19, verse 14 to 16. The armies of heaven were following him, riding on white horses and dressed in fine linen, white and clean. Coming out of his mouth is a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. He will rule them with an iron scepter. He treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God Almighty. On his robe and on his thigh he has this name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The reign of Jesus on earth for 1,000 years is described to us briefly in chapter 20. Satan is locked up for this period of time, and once more he is released. Once Satan is released, the world once more rises up against Jesus and gathers to fight the battle of Gog and Magog. It is at this time that the great day of judgment takes place. Finally, chapter 21 and 22 describe the new heaven and the new earth that God will create for his people. This is the place that we call heaven. In this place lies the hope of all Christians. The following words describe the crown for which we are running for. Revelation 21, verse 3 and 4. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them, and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. I hope that today has helped you gain a good understanding of the structure of the book of Revelation. Next week we will start our study of the book itself and seek to explain some of the many symbols that are found in this book. Although this study is not easy, it is important that we continually read and grow in our understanding of this book. This book starts with a blessing to those who read it, and it is my prayer that God will bless us as we attempt to understand his word.